All right, looks like I'm live. Welcome to, hold on, lost a window there. Welcome to the Twitch stream for the Polyglot Developer. This is the first stream that I'm doing on this particular channel. So this is more of a soft launch, kind of get me warmed up with streaming on a solo kind of channel for the Polyglot Developer. So just kind of ideas on what's going to happen here, or what my hopes and dreams are, is these are going to be very informal kind of live streams. They're going to be a little different from the YouTube videos that I put up, which are highly post-processed and just overall kind of a formal kind of educational experience. Whereas with the Twitch stream, I'm hoping that, hey, we learn something new, we engage. This is a totally different experience. So for example, in this particular stream, I am going to show you how I edit YouTube videos. So the process of this particular stream, we're going to be looking at opening a video that I've recorded, and I'm just going to edit it like I normally would offline. So the difference being that you're going to watch every step of the way. It could get a little boring in some parts, but it shouldn't take away from the educational experience that I want to provide. And if you have any questions, I do have the chat open. So for example, this should post something in the chat. Oops. So I just posted the chat. It should also appear inside of the video. So as of right now, this is only streaming to Twitch. But in the future, I'm hoping that I could kind of cross broadcast to, say, Twitch, YouTube, Mixer, kind of all of the popular streaming sources. So for now, it's going to be Twitch. We have the chat recording inside of the video itself, so that way people don't miss out on any of the conversation. I do ask that you follow the rules that I have on the Twitch channel. No foul language. Keep it very positive and encouraging for not only me, the presenter, but anyone else in the chat. So this should be a very positive experience, and it should amp you up and get you excited for developing, editing, whatever you're here for. So what I have on my screen, what we're going to do is we're going to record kind of a sample video. I'm going to be using ScreenFlow for this particular Twitch stream. I'm going to record a sample, just show you the ins and outs of what I do with that particular software, and then I'm going to open up a video that I recorded yesterday, so yesterday evening. And I'm going to walk you through editing that, and that video will actually show up on YouTube when I'm done. So this is going to be an actual real editing process of a video that I recorded. So before we get involved, though, I do want to share a few links. So for example, if this is your first time experiencing the Polyglot Developer, please take a moment to go to the core landing page, which is what I have on my screen, which is thepolyglotdeveloper.com. You can also follow on Twitter. So I have a bot set up so that way I have all of these links on hand, but also follow the Twitter handle as well. I'll share a few other links as we progress, but this is just a test episode. This is a warm up, but it should still be useful. All right, so I'm going to be using ScreenFlow. So let's go ahead and crack that open. I'm going to say ScreenFlow. I'm using ScreenFlow 9. You may be using other versions as well. It's totally up to you. But what you see here is I have two different monitors actually. So what I want to do is I want to record the monitor that you see right here. I am not going to be recording video from my camera. I could if I wanted to. So if I wanted to, I can click on this. I'm actually using this webcam. I don't know if it's going to mess up my stream at all. I'm not going to record from the camera. I am going to record audio from a microphone. So it's going to be using the microphone that I'm using currently. So let's just go ahead and record some sample video. I'll show you what that looks like. There's other settings that you could use. I'm not going to use them. I don't think I ever use them. I think these are the only two that I ever actually use. But your needs may differ from mine. So I'm going to say record. It's going to count down. You could always use the hotkey in order to start and finish. I use it particularly to finish the episode. But as of right now, we are recording my screen. Although you don't see it, I actually do have an icon in my Mac, I think it's called the toolbar. It is a little camera with a recording symbol to let me know that, hey, I'm recording. So if I scroll down, let's go ahead and scroll down a bit and just kind of not doing anything particularly exciting. I just want stuff that's actually recorded. If I opened up my Visual Studio Code, typically I would be recording some code. This is just a very basic kind of vanilla React project. It's not important for this particular editing phase, but I'm just showing that, hey, we've got different things that we can look at. I'm going to go back to my browser here. Actually, for curiosity's sake, what I'm going to be doing actually in the video for the real editing is I recorded a video around scaling and cropping and zooming images. So basically, the way that I do my videos, if you've been keeping up with my YouTube channel, if you haven't figured it out already, usually I won't do a video unless I've already got a blog post. Because at the end of the day, my super secret that I have is, hey, I'm just walking through my own blog post to record the video. So that's kind of my script. So you should see a lot of similarities between my YouTube videos and my blog post because, hey, I'm just walking through them. And if you want a link to my YouTube channel, I'm going to post it in the chat here. So definitely that's where you can see the on-demand videos, including Twitch videos are going to pop up there as well. So we have enough recorded. I'm going to hit the stop. We're definitely not going to record. We're not going to edit too far in depth what I have in this particular recording. This is just to show you some of the commands before we start doing it for real. So in this recording, you can see that it has both my audio stream here as well as my video. So if I wanted to play it, and it's going to play, it should play from my speakers. It may not if I mess something up, but you should be able to hear the audio as well. So I'm going to stay silent for just a second. But as of right now, we are recording my screen. Although you don't see it, I actually do have an icon in my Mac, I think it's called the toolbar. It is a little camera with a recording symbol to let me know that, hey, I'm recording. So if I scroll down, let's go ahead and scroll down a bit and just kind of not doing anything particularly exciting. I just want stuff that's actually recorded. If I opened up my Visual Studio Code, typically I would be recording some code. This is just a very basic kind of vanilla React project. It's not important. All right, so what I can do is I can skip around in my track. All is good. So when it comes to splitting things, I'm going to just walk you through some of the steps that I use. So for example, if I wanted to split a scene, and I'll zoom in just a bit here using the slider. There's also a shortcut. It should be the same shortcut that you see. Actually, I don't think so. I think I usually zoom in with my mouse, and that's how I get to it. But you could always use the bar. So when it's like this, you can split the track. So you can see that it's split now. There's a line there. I actually did that by pressing Shift T. So I highlighted what I wanted to split, and I just hit Shift T. And I do that quite a bit in my videos because that's how I cut certain parts out. What you can also do, and what you also might see in a lot of videos, is if I split something, and say, for example, I'm doing something with NPM or a package manager or something that takes a long amount of time, but it's not particularly useful or exciting, I can also speed up the track. So if I press Option on my keyboard, you see how the little clock icon appeared? If I hold that Option key and I scroll, you can see the little bunny rabbit kind of icon right here. That's because I'm changing the speed of that particular clip. So what I did was I sped it up. When I shrink it with the rabbit with the clock here, whoops, Control Z, I accidentally clicked the wrong item. When I do that, and I clicked the wrong item again. Let's get this out of here. It is just speeding up the track, and what it's doing is it's saying, hey, this particular clip is 1 second. I shaved off like 4 seconds in speed. I'm just speeding it up. So that's something that I use quite a bit as well. Now, this is where some kind of fancier features of ScreenFlow come in. And I'm not getting any kind of commission off of this video. I'm just a huge fan of ScreenFlow. So let's say that I wanted to zoom in on a certain part of this video. So you notice I've selected the video track or this particular clip. I can click up here and I can actually add an action. So I'm going to add an action. You'll notice that it added something right there, and I can change the scale. So I'm going to change the scale. I'm also going to move it up here. Now, if I click outside, I'm going to click before that action happened, and I'm going to hit play. And you'll notice that it not only panned, but it also zoomed. So it did it with a very nice animation based on the length of this particular action that I added. So it's pretty neat. So I add these quite a bit to kind of move around on my screen and zoom in to kind of highlight things. But that's not the only way that you can highlight things. So let me zoom out right here again. I added another action. I'm going to zoom back to 100%. You'll notice that I'm kind of off canvas here, so I'm going to fix it. So I'm back at normal screen, and you can see that right here. Just kind of nice animation. Not doing anything. What you can also do is you can do a call out. So this is another option up top. I can say add call out action. This time around, I'm actually going to freehand it. I'm going to use a box, and I'm going to select the part of the screen that I want to call out. So I'm going to just call out this title. You can see that it made the background kind of dark. It doesn't have to be dark. I could remove this opacity setting that it's set. But what you could also do is you can zoom that particular piece if you want, and it does it fancy. Like I said, you could also change the opacity bar. So it depends on what you're after. Are you after kind of moving the whole screen, or do you want to call out a certain section of the screen? So if I exit out of this area and watch it, not doing anything particularly exciting. I just want stuff. I don't think I zoomed in, but that's all right. It's still calling it out for me. So that's another option. Now, final thing that I kind of use is the audio. I use the audio to kind of get rid of background noise. I use it to get rid of clipping, kind of boost the audio if my audio, I don't know what these are truly called, sound waves is what I'm calling them. If those are very low, if I wanted to expand them, make them a little easier to see, which also improves the audio in a lot of circumstances as well, I can. So I'm going to exit out of this. I'm done playing around with this video. What we're going to do is we're going to edit a real video. I think this is like a 10 or 15 minute video. So it's going to be me doing what I normally do, but I'm going to show it live. So that way you get an understanding of what it is, what I go through for every video that I publish on YouTube, every course that I make, what goes into it. So that way, if you wanted to do it yourself, you kind of have this kind of expectation on, hey, this is how long it's going to take me. This is what I need to understand. And if you have any questions along the way, I encourage you to post them in the chat. And I do have my chat up. I can see them. If you are a new person to the channel, please follow the channel. Follow it, because then you get notifications every time I go live on Twitch. And if you're viewing it from another source, maybe you're viewing it on demand on YouTube, the Twitch channel, I just posted it in the chat here. This is the channel where I am streaming to right now. Again, like I said, my hopes and dreams are that one day I can publish to YouTube and Mixer and all of these platforms at the same time. But for now, this is where I'm at streaming wise. I'm by no means a pro, but I'll get better with time. So please follow the channel if you're watching. So let's close this. I'm not going to save it. What I'm going to do now is I actually have that video recorded. I'm going to open it. So I actually recorded this video on a different computer. So the canvas is going to be a little different. So with YouTube, I think they allow 4K now when it comes to final published versions, but my monitor isn't quite 4K from what I recorded it on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the document settings to reflect the canvas that I want to export to. So this is the resolution of my iMac that I recorded on. Not necessarily where I want to be, so I'm going to make it 1080p. So this will be satisfactory on most computers. It doesn't need to be full 4K in my circumstance, but use whatever makes sense for you. So I am going to update it, and you'll notice that now I have this kind of crop box around what we're looking at. If we wanted to, I am going to move this a little bit where I want kind of in the viewport. Let's go ahead and say that that is what I want to show. So this is the very start of the video. I also want to add a little more to it. So I want to add my splash screen to the beginning. This is a splash screen that I've already created. I'm already on that tab, so it's this one right here, the very end. And I'm going to say add. I'm going to add a file. I added it to ScreenFlow, so I'm going to open it. So I've added this. This is just a static image. I am going to move this down to make some room. And there's probably better ways to do all of this. Not claiming to be a ScreenFlow expert, but this is what I do when I edit my videos. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to drag it over onto the scene. It is a 1080p picture, so it does fill up the full canvas there because this is a 1080p canvas. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double click. I'm going to set how long I want that splash screen to go for. So 5 seconds is probably a little long. I'm going to make it maybe 4 seconds. So it's 4 seconds in length. What I'm also going to do is I just zoomed in there. I'm going to drag this over a bit so that way it's closer. I'm going to drag in. So you see the audio where it starts there. There's this little bit of silence. I'm actually going to set a transition. So I'm going to set a transition at the beginning of the video only. I didn't set a transition on the audio. I could have, but if I set it on audio, what's going to happen is it's going to go from quiet to loud. And that's acceptable in a lot of circumstances, but I prefer that the audio starts at max volume and the video just kind of fades in. So what I can do is I'm going to copy both of them and I'm going to drag this over. And you see how there's overlap now? This is where the video is, where that line is. I don't know if you can see it. That's where the video is fully transitioned in. So kind of where the audio is at full blast there. So if I tried it, let's go ahead and give it a shot. Hey everyone, in this tutorial we're going to see. So you see that the transition was short. The more I drag it over, the longer that transition is going to be. This box is kind of small, but you know what? It's fine for me. Just any kind of transition, as long as it's not just really jagged between the splash screen and the video itself, is good enough for me. So let's go ahead and start editing this. And you'll see as I go through, I'm going to be adding different actions. I'm going to try to talk you through it so that way you aren't left out if you're late joining. But again, at the end of this, you could always visit it on demand. I'm going to, assuming that everything went well, this will also show up on YouTube. Before I do that, let's go ahead. Actually, I think everything looks good. Yeah, I think everything looks good. The audio is fine. It looks fine. All right, so let's, I guess, take it from the beginning. Actually, I'm going to save it periodically too. Definitely always save it. I see these weird reviews saying that ScreenFlow crashed at some point and they lost all their work. Probably not an issue if you save regularly. I've never had it lose my work. I don't even know if I've had it crash, but better safe than sorry. Hey everyone, in this tutorial we're going to see how to do image manipulations client side in a React web application. So where this might become valuable. Oh, you know what? I just noticed something. So look at this bar right here. Send your image off to a remote web server. It's only playing one side of the speaker. So what I want to do is I want to change this. So I'm going to click it. I'm not clicking action for audio because I want this to take effect from the very start. If I did an action, it would do it right here where this, what is this, a tracker? I'm not a huge video audio guy, but it'll put it right here. So I don't want to put an action. What I want to do though is I want to set it to mono. It'll take just a second. Let's go ahead. I'll just rewind. It should be on both sides of the earphone. I've had this issue. I think it's the microphone that I have at my other desk. For whatever reason, it records on one side. It's weird. It might be because it's an XLR microphone versus this microphone I'm on now is just a USB microphone. I don't know. It's fixable. There's no noticeable problems with it. I've had no complaints as of recently. So let's go ahead and hit play. So where this might become valuable is, say you need to send your image off to a remote web server. You don't want your web server to do kind of guesswork when it comes to cropping or resizing, things like that. You want your client to be able to do it before it goes to that web server. This is an example of what we're trying to accomplish. Now, you might recall I've done this with Angular as well as Vue. This time around, we're going to be using React. So we're going to be using the same Cropper.js library that you might have seen in other tutorials that I've made. But this time around, we're going to be using React instead of a different web framework. So we are going to be working off of a fresh application. We're not going to be actually doing an HTTP request to a remote web service, but you'll get the idea. I'll point out where. So it looks like there's a piece that I have to edit out here. I probably spazzed out at some point, but you'll get the idea. I'll point out where you can actually make that HTTP request to a remote web service. But all right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both the audio and video track. I'm going to hit Shift T to split it. I am going to go kind of where I start talking again over here and say Shift T. And I am going to delete both. I'm going to click on the empty space and hit delete. Empty space delete, and let's check it out. I'm not going to be actually doing an HTTP request to a remote web service. I'll point out where you can. So you see what happened? I just removed out kind of where I went wrong in my video to add kind of that post-production value. Otherwise, you're going to, as a listener on YouTube, you're going to listen to a lot of mess ups because any of my cuts, they're far from perfect. So I do a lot of editing to actually make that HTTP request when the time comes. So let's go ahead and create a new project, and we're going to work our way up. So I'm going to say npx or npm if you already have create React app on your global installation. So we're going to say create React app. I'm going to call it image crop example. So this is just going to create a React web application on my desktop, but go ahead and create it wherever you want or create it however you feel the most comfortable. So you'll notice right here that I've stopped talking inside of this recording. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it. And what I could do is I could delete this entire thing and say, you know what, this is it's hopping from start to finish. But what I like to do actually is I like to speed it up. So it shows that, hey, I didn't skip any steps. So there's this big long cut here. Let's go ahead and cut it right here. Highlight this track that's just me doing npm. I'm going to hit that option key so that way I get the clock back here. And I am going to speed it up. And this is all preference. You could, like I said, remove this entire clip, but I'm going to, again, speed it up. You can see that I've just shaved off about 6 seconds of time and made it about 1.6 seconds total instead. So let's go ahead and delete the white space. And let's see what that looks like. Create it however you feel the most comfortable. All right, so you see how fast that was? It sped it up real quick. So again, totally up to you. I prefer to not do any kind of hand waving in my videos. So I try not, if I can, to remove clips entirely. If anything, I'm going to speed them up for your own convenience, so that way you're not stuck listening to a lot of nonsense. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to continue playing. We're going to continue editing. This process is not really a fast process. I got 25 minutes of video. Usually it takes me 25 minutes of editing. So it varies. It should be on my desktop. So if I wanted to, I can say cd image crop, or I could enter that project directory however seems the most comfortable to you. But let's go ahead and open that up in a IDE of some sort. I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code for this example. So what I'm going to do before I edit some more, I'm going to make sure that I'm still streaming, make sure that everything looks good. As far as I can tell, it looks good. So I'll go back, just checking in every once in a while. You never know. I don't want my stream to stop and I don't know about it. But let's go back in. You'll see that it's kind of small here. I do zoom in, but just keep watching. So you don't have to use Visual Studio Code if that's not your preference. Let me zoom in a bit so that way it's a little easier to see. We're going to start. All right, so I zoomed in. You'll notice that I don't really care for the little window buttons to show. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the video. I'm going to add an action. And I am going to zoom in a bit. Actually, no, I'm not going to zoom in. I am just going to move it. So I'm going to move it up a little bit. There we go. So just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to backtrack just a bit. We're going to start by opening the source directory. And you see that it moved. Not much, but file. Enough. Now, what we're going to do here is we're actually just going to clean it up. This is going to be where we add our image cropping component. So we're actually going to create a component, and then we're going to add it to this app.js file. So let's start by stripping some stuff away. So for example, I don't need everything that's inside of this particular div. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it as a blank kind of div, or as you see here. But I am going to change the indent because by default I think it uses 2 spaces for the tabs, which to me it's going to drive me nuts because my editor is set up to 4 spaces. So I want things to look rather uniform. So I'm going to save it. So this is where we're going to start. And I don't even need this class name. It's a little overkill. We're not going to use the class. So one thing that I've noticed about ScreenFlow, I don't know why it does it. It might be because my computer's not fast enough, is it doesn't always show all of the, again, I'm calling them sound waves. I don't know the true name for them, but it doesn't always show them all. It shows just what's on the screen. Likewise with the video. So you can get those back if you suffer from the same issue that I do, just by hitting pause and then play again. For this particular example. So I'm going to save it. If I wanted to, I could remove this CSS file, which actually, let's go ahead and do that. Now, I am going to use an image. We're just going to leave this as is. I'm going to change this to a different image when we get there. But for the most part, you want this to look as basic as possible. So the next part is we need to get this cropper.js library. So this is just a standard JavaScript library. It's actually quite popular. It's called cropper.js. You can install it. It tells you how to install it. Now, if I wanted to, what I could do is I could go back a little bit to when I first load this. And again, it's all, how much do I want to add to this video production value? I can go ahead and say action for the video. I can change how it's centered. So I centered it. I zoomed up a bit. And let's check it out. JS library. So this is just a standard JavaScript library. Get everything on the screen there. It's actually quite popular. It's called cropper.js. You can install it. It tells you how to install it in the instructions, and it's quite in-depth when it comes to what you can do with this particular tool and how to do it inside of the GitHub documentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Visual Studio. And you'll see that I have everything cut off there. Easy fix. Add another action. Drag it to where I want. And it'll do the animation for me. So watch. Go back to Visual Studio Code. Let's go. Pretty neat, right? At least I think so. And if I wanted to, I can zoom in too. Just be careful with the zoom. I did this back in the day before I realized that I could change the canvas size. So when you scale it, you could easily scale in to zoom in on part of this text, but it kind of looks weird. It's noticeably that you've zoomed. Whereas if you zoom in the editor prior to recording, the fonts increase to the size that you're looking for, and it just looks overall more readable. So if you're recording a technical video, some lessons I learned along the way, I used to be using Atom, but Atom didn't really zoom in the entire editor. I moved over to Visual Studio Code. It allowed me to zoom in on the entire editor, not just the core font. So it increased the font on everything. And font, I think, is a scalable vector graphic almost. So it's going to look good for as long as you scale in the editor itself. And it also makes it look a lot nicer when you're at 100% zoom as well. But you know what? If you find yourself in that circumstance where you need to zoom in more, you can go ahead and increase it. Just be careful. go ahead and open up a command line right there inside of the IDE. What I'm going to say is npm install. I'm going to say cropper.js, and I'm going to say -- save. So this is installing it to my React application project. So this is another one of those circumstances where I'm saying npm and it's giving me a long gap of silence while it installs. So what I can do is I can cut the scene. So I'm going to say Shift T. I'm going to say Shift T at the end, and I'm going to shrink it. So I'm going to shrink it down to like, I don't know, 1 second. So by shrinking it, I'm saying that I'm speeding it up. So let's clear this empty space. I'm going to save it here. We're going to look at it. Application project. So right, finished. Perfect. So I am going to clear my terminal. It should be good. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to create a component. I'm going to create a component for what we plan to do with cropper.js, because, well, at the end of the day, we could do it directly inside of this app function. It's probably not the most ideal. It's probably not what you're going to be doing in actual production kind of applications. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say make directory. I'm going to say source components, and then I'm going to say image cropper, and I'm going to leave it at that for now. I hit pause so that way it shows all of my audio again. Actually, I'm going to remove that. I'm going to just say source components. It probably failed because I didn't type in the full path. Actually it didn't fail because I had a source and it just created a components directory there. Next up, so what I'm going to say is I'm going to say maybe touch. I'm going to say source components, and I'm going to call it image cropper.js. So instead of creating an image cropper directory, I'm just adding the components directly inside the components directory. Feel free to modify this to better suit your own development needs or however you have done things in the past for React. But because this is a fresh example, this kind of makes things easy for us. So I have a cropper.js file, or an image cropper.js file. I also want to add a CSS file because we want to be able to style how things behave in this particular example. Because like I mentioned, we're not actually going to be doing the HTTP request with our image. Instead, we're just going to display it graphically on the screen. And to do that, we probably want to add some of our own CSS. So let's go ahead and add that. I'm going to go into the CSS file that we just created, and I'm going to say image. I'm going to call this container. And the whole purpose of this one, this is going to represent the image that we want to modify visually. So it's going to be interactive for the user. Now I wanted to point something out. I'm also looking at the stream in a secondary window on what everyone else is seeing. So this whole thing, it looks pretty small. The text is pretty small, but you have to remember that this is the only thing that's going to export when I finally export this video. So everything within this video window, it's going to be a lot larger. So this is not reflective of kind of reality or end final production video. I do apologize though that I think this might be a little small, the entire ScreenFlow window. But unfortunately, that's just the screen real estate that I have. I think though that you're still able to see it. At least I'm hoping that you're still able to see everything that happens. Again, this is my first stream on the Polyglot Developer channel, so things are likely to change between streams as I get a little better. So let's continue editing. User. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say something like maybe width. I'm going to say 640 pixels. I'm going to say height. I'm going to say maybe 400 or maybe 480 pixels, and then I'm just going to say that this is going to float to the left. This is very basic CSS, but the goal that I'm after here is maybe I want that kind of raw image to appear on the left quite large, and then I'm going to have a preview box on the side of it. That preview box being the edited image that if we wanted to, we could upload that. I'm just going to check the stream, make sure that I'm still actually streaming here. Let's see here. Looks like I probably am. So I'm going to pause it again. Go back, and let's proceed. Edited image, but we're just going to display it for this example. So I'm going to say image preview, and I'm going to say width. Let's go ahead and say maybe it's 200 pixels. the height is going to be 200 pixels. We're going to float this left as well, so it sits next to the image container. And I'm going to give it a little bit of margin. I'm going to say margin left is maybe, I don't know, 10 pixels. This is simple CSS. I'm by no means a CSS wizard. I'm pretty sure most people can do at least 10 times better than I can when it comes to CSS. But this is our very basic CSS that we're going to work with. So as of right now, we have kind of an empty app.js file. We have some basic CSS. Let's go ahead and open up the imagecropper.js file. And this is where we are going to have kind of the bulk of our application logic. So let's go ahead and say import React from React. Let's go ahead and say import cropper from cropper.js. So that's the package that we just downloaded. We also need to get the CSS from that particular package. So the CSS being kind of the what you see is what you get user interface, which we did not design. So the CSS that we added again was just for showing a raw image and a preview next to it. The actual cropper.js CSS has the interactive kind of fancy components that you're definitely going to want. So we're going to say import, we're going to say cropper.js, we're going to say dist, and we're going to say cropper.min.css. And you'll notice that this is not a relative path. This is actually going to look inside of my node modules directory for this path. And then finally, I'm going to say import. This is going to be a relative path. I'm going to say image cropper.css. So this is going to be the CSS that we had just
far looking
created.
good. I mean, we're only 8 minutes through.
So let's go ahead and make
25.
that class.
So
we're
we got a bit of time.
Class image cropper extends react.component. And we are going to use state variables. We're going to be using properties. And we're going to make use of, say, component did mount. So let's go ahead and start with a constructor. We're going to reference super. And we're going to add a state variable. So we're going to say this dot state equals, and let's go ahead and say image destination. And this is going to represent kind of the destination image for our preview. Now we're going to be adding other stuff to the constructor, but let's leave it at that just for now. Next up, let's go ahead and define our render function. So inside of the render, we have return, and let's go ahead and add some HTML. So we're going to say div, and inside the div, let's go ahead and say div class. And this is going to be our image container. So again, our image container being from our CSS file. So we have our image container.
Let me pause this so that way we see the rest of the audio.
Let's go ahead and add our kind of preview. So let's go ahead and say image, and this is going to be class equals image preview. This is just an image tag. Let's close it off there. So this is kind of just vanilla HTML right here. We're not doing anything React oriented yet. So the first step that we want to do is, well, cropper.js is going to expect our raw image, so our source image. It's actually going to expect the actual image HTML field itself. And we can't necessarily pass in a kind of model variable or a state variable. So instead we have to create a reference variable in React. So actually, let's go ahead and start this. We're going to say image, and we're just going to add to it as we go along. So for the reference variable, to do that in React, well, we should do that inside the constructor. So let's go ahead and create a variable. We're going to say this dot let's say image element for the HTML element, and we're going to say React So in case you're a late joiner, just to follow up again, just to kind of catch you up on what we're working on here. This is a video that I recorded prior in ScreenFlow. What I'm doing here is I am editing it. So I'm walking you through the editing process that I go through when it comes to any YouTube video or any course that I publish. So that means zooming in on certain areas, cutting out mistakes, fast forwarding, enhancing the audio, just anything to make it that much better of an experience for you, the viewer on my YouTube channel. Because you know what, if you look back at my very first YouTube videos back when I was using iMovie, before I had a decent microphone, before I had any idea what I was doing, the evolution of my videos, in my opinion, have gotten progressively better. So ScreenFlow did help. It was recommended to me from a friend. I am recommending it. I am not making any kind of commission off of this product. But if you are serious about making technical screencasts for YouTube or any other kind of video network or courses, this is definitely a good software. The reason why I'm watching this video from start to finish is because I want it to be as close to perfect as possible. If I skipped around, you never know what kind of experience you would receive. So, rule of thumb, for the duration of the video, you're going to spend at least that much time in editing that video. So, expect it to be a lengthy process. .create ref. So create reference. You know what? Just to check on the stream, doing it periodically because this is kind of a soft launch. Make sure everything's still going all right. Looks good. I'm in Twitch. Hopefully, after a few streams in, I'll be confident enough that I am streaming with no problems, and I won't have to check. And we can use that in here on line, what is this, 20. So we're going to say ref equals this dot image element. So this is going to represent, this variable is going to represent the reference to this particular HTML item, this component. Next up, we could either hard code the image, which probably wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, or we can ask the user to pass in kind of the path to that image on their own. So what we can do is we can say something like source. So this is a source tag for the image. And we can say this dot props. So this is a property that a user. So you'll notice I do want to point it out that some of what you see in my editor is appearing off of the canvas because the canvas is set to 1080p. What I could do if I really wanted to show this tooltip, I could add an action on the video and pan it over. But you know what? Tooltip to me isn't too important. If it gets cut off, so be it. If my code lines become too long, then I will likely pan over because I want everyone to see the code lines. But just note that in this gray area, the user will not see this in the final copy. They will see whatever is in the canvas. So let's keep looking. Who's going to define when they make use of this particular component. And let's just say that they're going to call this property source as well. All right. And maybe we add an alt tag. So we're going to say maybe this is source. All right. So we have that. Next up, we know that the preview is going to go in this preview kind of image on line 22. So let's go ahead and make use of that state variable. So this image destination. So let's go ahead and say source equals this dot state dot image destination. Let's go ahead and add an alt to it. Let's go ahead and say that this is the destination, and we can save it for now. So we're kind of in good shape. The exception here is that we're not actually doing anything with Cropper.js yet. We've just set the groundwork. We have a reference to the tag that's going to be using Cropper.js, and we also have an image tag that's going to be used for our manipulated client-side image. So let's go ahead and make use of one of React's functions here. We're going to say component did mount. So this is going to happen after our component mounts. So that's when we start making use of Cropper.js. So let's go ahead and say constant cropper. And a lot of this is actually taken from the documentation. This is kind of the base usage. Let's see if I could dig it up. I've used it a few times, so it's kind of in memory. But it's going to look like this right here from the documentation. Basically, we have our reference. We're going to pass in that reference here. We're going to define any kind of properties for this library, and then any kind of callback functions. So let's go back into the code here. So I'm going to say cropper equals new cropper. We want to pass in the image element, React friendly, because we can't just say something like element.getQuery. What is it? Get element ID, something like that with just vanilla JavaScript. So we're going to say this dot image element dot current, and then all of our properties. So the first property that we're going to say is I don't want this to be zoomable. You might want to be able to zoom in on your image. For this example, I'm going to say no. Next up, scalable. Do you want to be able to scale your image? I am going to say no as well. I'm going to say aspect ratio. This is kind of, do I want this to be a fixed kind of crop box where it's maybe a perfect square always? Or do I want the user to be able to kind of free scale it, or maybe I want it to be 16 by 9. Who knows? I can define it. I'm going to say 1. So this is a perfect 1 by 1 or a perfect square crop box. And then I'm going to define my crop function. So this crop function is every time it detects that a crop has happened from the kind of UI aspect of things, this function is going to be called, at which case I want to grab it and display it in the preview. So what I can say is I can say constant canvas equals cropper dot get cropped canvas. So I have the canvas, and then I'm going to say this dot set state. So I'm going to set that state variable. I'm going to set the image destination, and that's going to be canvas dot to data URL. This is going to be of type PNG, portable network graphic, and I'm going to add a semicolon. So while we are just going to be setting the destination so that way we can immediately render it inside of our render function, hence this line 34, since we're setting the source, this is where you could also do an HTTP request to a remote server. You would just send the data. So this is, I think it's base 64 encoded, but instead we're just going to be setting it to an HTML component so that way it renders it immediately. So let's go ahead and save it. We're going to try it out now. So this is where we actually kind of make. So I just paused it. I just want to mention something. I'm hoping that in this final copy or this stream that you're listening to right now, I'm hoping that you can hear the actual audio from the video. I did have some issues earlier. I haven't fully tested it. I haven't fully figured it out. If there's a lot of silence when I'm not talking right now, I apologize. Things will get better in future streams. So if you're watching this now and you're just seeing me stand here staring at the screen, sorry. You're supposed to be able to hear the audio. If you're on YouTube, I apologize as well. You'll just have to kind of maybe turn on Spotify while I do some video editing. But if not, I hope that maybe you're still getting something out of the video content that is still on the screen. Make use of it. So if I go back into app.js, and we're gonna review everything that we did once we're done. But let's go ahead and include our component. So I'm going to say import image cropper from, and this is a relative path, components / image cropper. Inside of app, or inside of this div tag, I'm going to say, I also apologize if there is any kind of echo as well, because I do have my speaker. I do have a microphone right here. If the microphone is picking up the speaker, I apologize. Future videos, I may wear a headset to prevent this. It depends on how bad the audio is. And in a lot of videos where I'm just coding, you know what, I'm not even actually going to have sound on anyway, so it doesn't matter. But if there's an echo, I'll probably fix that in a future video. Image cropper. Remember, we have a source property. That's what we're looking for. And that's it. Now let's go ahead and add an image. I do have one on my desktop that we're going to use. So I'm going to say copy desktop. This is a so actually you can see right here on the stream that it is being cut off. Actually right here, there's my mouse. It's being cut off. It's off the canvas here. So if I go back to before I started typing, what I can do is I can add an action. So I can say action and then pull it up. So I'll just pull it up right there, and then we can move it back when it's done. So let's check it out. On my desktop that we're going to use, so I'm going to say, there we go, copy desktop. This is a portable network graphic. I'm going to copy it into my, and this just reiterates, I paused it again. This is just reiterating the fact that, hey, you should probably watch your entire video from start to finish, because you never know what's going to appear on the screen, what's going to be some kind of technical glitch. Unless, of course, maybe you don't care too much about the overall quality and you just want to get that kind of raw experience. Totally up to you. Me, I like to make sure that there's no kind of guesswork in my content. Source directory. And we're going to make use of it. So we're going to say, let's see. So I'm going to add another action here. I'm going to pull it back down. We're going to look at it, and we're going to make use of it. So we're going to say, let's see if we can do, I believe we can do this. We're going to try it, see if this works out. I'm going to save it. I know that we're not using this, but we'll leave it there just for now, just for reference. Let's go ahead and run it. So I'm going to say npm start. So let's go see why this empty space is. So paused it. Let's go ahead and cut it. I'm going to trim the scene here because it is, it's nothing really exciting is happening. There's no build set up. I'm just going to clip it, and I am going to delete that clip. So let's go back. All right. Image cropper does not contain. All right. So I missed a step. So let's go ahead and take a look. Let's go into image cropper JS here. So if I had to guess, I declared this class, but I never actually exported it. So let's go ahead and export it. So I'm going to say export default image cropper. I'm going to save it. Looks like it's probably good this time. So I'm going to go back into my browser. It doesn't, if I had to guess, it doesn't recognize the path to my image here. Well, it actually is failing. All right, let's scroll over so we can see what I'm looking at. Let's go ahead and add an action. Let's bring it over. And I know I didn't zoom in. That's because I forgot in this particular web browser. But this is a circumstance where maybe I do want to zoom in, or maybe I want to use a call out for other reasons. So let's take a look at how that works. Well, it actually is failing for other reasons. Did I mean class name? Yeah, probably. Let's go ahead and go back and fix that. All right, let's add another action. So let's go ahead and go into image cropper. This should probably be class name. This should also probably be class name. Save it. Let's see what's going on now. No more errors. It probably can't find the path to my image. So I'm going to pause it right here. So this is just a reminder that, hey, we've been working on this ScreenFlow document for at least 19 minutes, making edits. Make sure you take a moment to save your work, because if things go south, you want to make sure that you have your long, hard-worked video saved. Also, you'll notice that I have this big gap of silence. I believe this is when I got up to use the bathroom. So sometimes these videos get long. I don't expect to have to get up or do anything, maybe answer the door, but it happens. I just did some silence here. This is something that you could do in your own videos. Just stay completely silent so that way you have an editing point, and then you can always very easily edit it out. So I'm going to clip it. I'm going to go all the way over here. I'm going to clip it because I didn't actually do anything in those however many seconds or minutes that was. I'm going to remove it. I am going to click right here and get rid of that empty space. And we pick up where I left off. So again, when you're recording these videos, don't think that you have to be at the computer for however long of time it is to record. Just like on a Twitch stream, if I really had to use the bathroom or answer the door, just walk away. So it doesn't hurt the editing process. It doesn't deteriorate the quality of your video. You could always fix that post-processing. So I'm going to save it. It probably can't find the path to my image. So let's go back into our Visual Studio Code. This is where we're going to go into app.js. Let's go ahead and maybe say import my image from, we have a relative path, tracydevs.png. Let's go ahead and maybe call it tracydevs. We're going to say that this is source. Let's go ahead and say tracydevs. I think this should work out better this time. It's building it. Let's go back into the browser. Yeah, looks better. So I'll zoom in. Oop, I zoomed in on the wrong thing. Zoom in over here. And I'll give full focus to the actual window here. So I'll do an action. And I will scroll up just slightly to bring out any distractions. Let's take a look. Zoom in over here. So we have the image that I was working with. You'll notice that I can move this around, and it's actually showing a preview up here in the right. I can scale it. It is a perfect square because of the aspect ratio that I defined. If I were to try to change the size any other way, it's always going to be a square. And if I wanted to, I could save this image. Well, it's not particularly useful just to show a preview like this. Like I said, in more circumstances than not, you'll actually want to send the image to a remote web server when you're done instead. So that's out of the scope of this particular tutorial. Let's go ahead and edit that out, because nobody needs to hear me cough in a upload. So let's go to fix that server when you're done instead. So I'm going to do a clip of the audio and the video. I do them both so that way I don't have any kind of audio and video sync issues. So I just clipped it. I'm going to remove them both. And we're good. When you're done instead. So that's out of the scope of this particular tutorial. But you can see that we do now have client-side image editing. So let's go back into Visual Studio Code. We'll just add an action here to fix the kind of layout. I always like to have my tabs showing. I'm not necessarily a fan of having my Visual Studio Code title bar showing. It's totally up to you on how you want to do it. Again, remember my canvas I recorded on an iMac, not a HD, not a Retina one. This is a really old iMac. It's not quite 4K. It's not 1080p. So I just set the canvas to 1080p so that way everything looks good. It doesn't look too small or who knows. You never know what could happen. Visual Studio Code. We'll just do a refresher on everything that we did. I created two CSS classes here. I created an image container which represented the large editable image, so kind of the raw image. I created a CSS class name here for the small preview box that we showed on the right. If I look into the imagecropper.js file, we've included the CSS from the cropper.js library, or cropper.js library. We included our own custom CSS. We created a state variable for image destination. So this is the edited image. We also created a reference variable for the actual source image component itself. So we set that up inside the render function. So we have the source image. The source image is taking the source property from the user, so from the prior app.js component or wherever you're calling this component from. We have our reference variable defined. We have the destination in place. And then inside of this component did mount, we're actually taking the code, which is pretty much from the documentation itself. We didn't do much. There's actually quite a few properties that you can use, and there's actually quite a few functions within this particular cropper documentation as well. So there's crop, there's zoom, there's scale, there's tons of stuff that you can do with this particular JavaScript package. But in our circumstance, we just took the result of the crop and we added it to our image destination. Likewise, with app.js file, we have this image that I copied over. We have this component that I imported. It didn't work the first time. I had a bunch of errors, but we're making use of the image cropper component that we just created, passing in that image as a source property, and we are doing our manipulations to it. So this is cropper.js. And like I said, I do have other tutorials for Vue and Angular. This is very useful to have in your applications. Back in the day, I used to try to do this all server side, but you know what? It never worked out properly because say I wanted to kind of crop an image, the images were never centered correctly. You never know. At least when you do it this way, the user can do it. There's no guesswork. It makes a better application. If you liked this particular video, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. It's definitely much appreciated. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to get rid of this last little bit of silence at the end of the video. So I'm going to cut it and then delete it. All right, so that is a fully edited video. We're now at 23 minutes. I think we shaved off like 2 minutes, but we removed a lot of bits and pieces that were no good. So unfortunately now this is going to be the boring part, especially for a Twitch stream. We need to export it. Exporting it does take a little bit of time, but we're not quite done yet. I want to show you some other tips and tricks that I use. Post export, I think it'll help a lot of people. Not knowing this in the beginning definitely was painful, and I'll explain. So what we want to do is we want to go to export. I'm going to keep the defaults. Notice that the resolution is 1080p. Notice the estimated file size. So this is why we're doing more after the export. 1 gigabyte is quite large. I mean, my internet's not that great. I'm probably barely able to stream on Twitch. But to upload 1 gigabyte, it takes some time to upload it to YouTube. Not only that, but I think Comcast, which is what I use, I think they limit me my bandwidth quotas. So if I want to not have extremely high bills, I need to cut it smaller than 1 gigabyte. So what we're going to do after we export is we are going to compress it with hopefully minor loss of quality, if anything. So I'm going to hit export. Let's go ahead and I'll save it to Twitch ScreenFlow. Hopefully this doesn't take more than a few minutes. This is your opportunity to ask me stuff. Go get some coffee, or if you're watching this on demand, just skip over the X amount of minutes it takes to export this video. Hopefully it doesn't kill my computer because I am streaming and exporting at the same time. This is a laptop that I'm on, so we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't disrupt anything. I'm going to go back into to see if I'm still streaming. See that nothing happened that shouldn't have. It looks like I'm still going, which is good. So let me get out of there. We'll just watch it. So the next step, what we're going to be using is we're going to be using a software called Handbrake. It's an open source software. There's probably other software that does the same thing. All we're going to do is we're going to take this exported MP4 file. We're going to send it through Handbrake, and hopefully it's going to go from 1 gigabyte down to, amazingly, probably 25 megabytes. So huge compression, and from as far as I can tell, there's no loss of quality. I mean, my vision's not the best, my hearing's not the best, but it should be great. and then you can upload it to YouTube. And hopefully, overall, this gives you some insight. So, again, the tool that we're going to be using, I'm going to type it in the chat. It's called Handbrake. That's the tool that we're going to be using to compress this when it's done. I guess I'll use this as an opportunity to share some more links. Again, I am kind of the lead publisher for the Polyglot Developer. My name is Nic Raboy. But if you want to learn more about me specifically and less about the Polyglot Developer, you can visit my own personal website. You also saw me throw out, as far as when we were editing, you saw that I was using an image called Tracy Devs. I am in Tracy, California. If you want, I do have a meetup that I run. So this is called Tracy Devs. If you're in the area, if you even know where Tracy's at, love to have you come to the meetup. You can ask any questions you want. This is a tech meetup. These are just shameless plugs that I'm sending out right now. Feel free, if they don't relate to you or if you're not interested, don't click them. You're not going to hurt my feelings. But do want to make sure that you have all of the kind of material that is necessary. Also, I think I might have a newsletter link. Let's see if I have a bot for that. No bot. All right, so if you go to the actual website, so the polyglotdeveloper.com website, oh, maybe my bot is down. I have no idea. Nope, it's there. It's just a little delayed. My computer is probably working as hard as it can right now. Go to the main Polyglot Developer website. There's a newsletter link at the bottom of the page. Just click it if you want to know when I go live, to get caught up on blogs, videos, any kind of events that I'm hosting or participating at. It's a good opportunity. I'm not selling your names to some company. It's all private. You can unsubscribe at any time. So while I'm kind of getting into the streaming for the Polyglot Developer channel, kind of as more test runs, I'm probably going to show how to edit podcasts. So just like with YouTube videos and courses, podcasts is part of the Polyglot Developer brand. I know a lot of people want to start their own podcast. I think it may be the next episode. It may be an episode later down the line. I'll show you what I do to edit the Polyglot Developer podcast. And that uses tools like GarageBand. I use a service called Zencastr for recording guests. I'm going to walk you through all of that. And this is just while I get more comfortable on Twitch for this particular channel. If you have any suggestions at all, try to stay positive. I don't want my feelings to get hurt too much. But if you have suggestions, feedback, anything, please send them to me. You can even send them to me on Twitter. Like maybe you don't like the red background that I'm using for Twitch. It does follow the Polyglot Developer brand, but maybe it's not good on your eyes. Maybe something's not rendering properly. I don't know. Give me some feedback. I'd love to hear it. So we'll just hang out for a little bit. I don't know if you can see my shirt, but if you want one of these Polyglot Developer shirts, you could always post a tutorial for me. I'll send you one in the mail. It's probably not easy to see, but this is word art. So it's the logo composed of different programming languages and technologies. So it's a lot of text. It's an interesting shirt. You shouldn't feel embarrassed wearing it in public. Again, just want to throw it out there. If you're tuning in, whether you're on demand on YouTube or live right now, please follow this channel on Twitch. It would mean a lot to me. So just go to the Twitch channel. Again, I'll share it in the comments here. Go to this channel, hit that follow button, and you will receive notifications when I go live again. Because it's your opportunity to engage. I'm live. Ask me some questions. So whether you're on YouTube or wherever, you know where the source material is coming from, at least for now, until I figure out what I need to do to get this on Mixer and YouTube Live, Facebook Live, things like that, or whatever I'm missing. I'm not a pro at this. Usually I wouldn't be standing here when it comes to exporting. I would usually come back in 30 minutes or so when I can be convinced that it's done. But I don't want to just leave the stream and whoever comes joining wonder, hey, where'd he go? Or is it even live? I don't even know. So I'll stay here, hang out until it's done. It's almost done. Almost done. All right, looks like it exported. I'm going to save it one more time just in case. I'm going to close out of this. I'm going to open up Finder here. So this is what it exported. It may not be 1 gigabyte. It is, yeah, it's a lot less. It's not even half a gigabyte. But for 429 megabytes, still kind of much, especially because I archived these after. Because, hey, this is part of my portfolio. I want to save it in case YouTube ever goes away. So 429 megabytes is kind of a lot to store on my hard drive. But if I play it, see what we've got. Hey everyone, in this tutorial we're going to see how to do image manipulation.
I'm zoomed in,
just like what we did in ScreenFlow
directory, and we're going to open up that app
skipping around a bit
.js file variable or a state variable. So instead we
It
have
actually looks not that bad.
Reference variable
so
in React.
This is the process that I do.
Imported, but you know what? It never worked out properly because
So I just skipped around.
say I wanted to.
So I'll stop it.
Crop an image.
So the next step, like I said, I use Handbrake. So again, this is an open source software. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this version. I'm going to open up my MP4. I'm going to do a few things here. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the filters. So for whatever reason, when I edit on this particular computer, when I compress it some of the colors start spazzing out. And I could easily set a preset, but what I'm going to do is I am going to say, I think it's the deinterlace that that spazzes out. So I'm going to turn that off. Again, this is on my other computer. When I use Handbrake to compress it, it doesn't. So I don't know if it's something to do with my laptop, the monitors, who knows. It doesn't really affect the file size too much. I'm going to go to audio, 160 bitrate. I usually drop it down to 128. Again, audio, it sounds good to me. I don't know if people can notice any kind of compression issues, but this is what I usually set it at, 128. As far as where I am saving it to, let's go ahead. Maybe I'll browse it. I'll save it to the ScreenFlow directory. This one will be 1. So this will represent the new one. So that way we can compare the file sizes in the end. So let's go ahead and start it. Again, this is one of those boring kind of processes here. However long it takes to export. Usually Handbrake is a lot faster than the initial export. But because I have streaming happening at the same time, I don't know, it might slow things down. You probably can't hear it, but my laptop is starting to sound like a jet engine. So if you have a more power, I'm using a MacBook Pro. It's able to handle it fine. It just makes a lot of sound effects. I've edited it on far worse hardware, so don't think that you need something fancy to use ScreenFlow. Or compress, because you don't. It doesn't have to be powerful. While that's going, I'm going to check the stream manager. I'm actually going to test the audio. I'm going to check the stream manager. I'm actually going to test the audio. So it looks like the audio is working. So just going back. Again, this is just me testing things. I'm a novice Twitch streamer. Definitely not a pro. Again, this is one of those circumstances with Handbrake. Walk away, go to the bathroom, have some lunch. Don't sit here like I am and just watch it. It's like watching paint dry or water boiling. Take some time. But I don't want to exit the Twitch stream. But after this, I mean, it's done. Just upload it to YouTube. The only reason we're sticking around is because I want to show you the difference in file size, and without hardly any noticeable loss of quality. I guess I'll talk more about my setup for recording. So usually when I record videos, so I have two pretty much similar microphones. I have an AT2020 microphone, two of them. The difference is one of my microphones is an XLR microphone, so I need a preamp for it. And then the one that I'm on right now that you see on in my webcam, this is an AT2020 USB microphone. So more or less the same microphone, but at my desktop behind me, I'm using a XLR microphone. Both run in the end probably roughly around $160. You don't need the highest of quality microphone to stream or to record. I recommend it because when people complain, the number one complaint that you're going to receive is audio complaints. Because when you publish to YouTube, when you go on Twitch, You're not just trying to accommodate the audience that speaks your same language. So, for example, I'm speaking English. All over the world, people may not be native English speakers. So you want that audio to be clear so that way they can understand it. So the higher quality microphone, the better off you're going to be. Like I said, I'm on a MacBook Pro right now for streaming. Behind me, I'm using a very old iMac. I think it's from 2011. So it might even be 2010. It's pretty old. So you don't need the most fancy kind of hardware. It's just go for it. ScreenFlow, I think I paid $100. I think I pay $100 per year for ScreenFlow. I used to be using iMovie. It's a lot better. I know a lot of people like Camtasia. There's probably some other software out there too. I mean, I haven't had an issue with ScreenFlow. You saw that it was pretty straightforward, but it's totally your preference. Then Handbrake is open source. Trying to think what else would be helpful for people starting out. Just remember to zoom in on your browser, zoom in on your code editor. These are easy things that could be fixed on a stream or on a video recording. You don't have to do a whole lot of post-processing. Otherwise, unless you forgot, then maybe you have to do a little bit. But very easy to fix. So if you're trying to consider starting on YouTube, I know that's a big jump. Maybe you don't like hearing yourself. Maybe you don't like seeing yourself. Maybe you're worried that the time commitment's too much. It's not. It really pays off. At the end of the day, you're either helping somebody in the end because you're sharing something that they might find value in, but also you're adding it to your own professional portfolio. And nowadays, your portfolio is everything. You need a good portfolio, and video recordings, Twitch, that kind of stuff, it helps. So just hopefully that's encouraging a little bit. It helped me at least. And don't be a stranger in the chat. If you if you're lurking in the chat and you want to get involved, it does appear on the screen, but I'm happy to help. For all I know, there could be nobody in the chat right now. I didn't heavily promote this episode, so things will change as we progress. It'll get better. This Handbrake is definitely taking a lot longer than it normally does. I assume I'm using Open Broadcast Studio. I'm assuming this stream is probably having something to do with the long export times. Almost done. I'm actually standing at a standing desk as well. One thing that I've noticed is it's a lot more pleasant to record or even Twitch when I'm standing. I don't know. It's probably personal preference, but I am standing up. I can move around. I can fidget a little bit. I can put my leg on something. Everyone will have their own opinions, though, on what they're comfortable with when it comes to streaming. Almost done. All right, perfect. Let's check it out. So I'll close out that. Go back into the Finder. Let's go ahead and check the file size of this new video. So for this one, we're looking at about 60 megabytes. So that's down from our original, which was around 400 megabytes. So definitely a big change here. Let me fix my microphone. I hit it by accident. So let's go ahead and check the quality here. Should be close enough. Hey everyone, in this tutorial we're going to see how to do image manipulations so I'll skip around.
Side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to reference
again, my vision's not as clear as a lot of people's, but I think
so
the video is very clear and I think the audio is very clear.
Let's go ahead and say image destination. Last name tag. I'm going to say from the documentation itself.
To me it looks good.
We didn't do much.
So I'll exit out. We're going to bring this to a close. Just want to recap this episode or this stream. I showed you how to use ScreenFlow. I show you what I go through every time I record a YouTube video of any length or a video course for the courses section of the Polyglot Developer, which let's see if I have a shortcut for it. Is this. So just know that's the amount of effort that I put into each recording plus whatever it takes to plan. So it's not the end of the world. Anyone can do it, but it takes time, and it takes practice. I used ScreenFlow to record and edit, and then I used Handbrake to compress, and then whatever other kind of software you want to create your splash screens in or sound effects or whatever might happen. So again, this is the first stream on the Polyglot Developer Twitch channel. If you want to, I definitely encourage you to follow the channel and hopefully have a lot more streams. Expect both videos to end up on YouTube. So this video of me on Twitch, as well as the video that we just edited. So both will be up on YouTube eventually, as long as nothing happened. Hopefully this is being recorded on Twitch, but you never know. We'll see. Thank you for tuning in.